What's up, guys? Paul from Paul Sklar's Fit. I'm outside. It is a beautiful day, sunny, love it outside. I hope you're having a great day because right now I'm going to show you 3 exercises to fine-tune and sculpt your abdominals using a resistance band. Now, you may need 1 or 2 resistance bands for these 3 movements. I use these 3 exercises before I go out to the beach, before I go out to the pool. So if you want to get a nice party pump in the abdominals, there's also a little bit more. Lats, serratus, your entire core, certainly arms. Try these 3 exercises. I guarantee you, if you get them right and you stay consistent with them, as with everything else, you will see amazing results. All right, so the most important thing is that you find an anchor point. And right now, I'm going to show you exactly how you anchor your bands and then how you get them set up. For these 3 exercises, you will need 1 or 2 resistance bands depending on your fitness level. I'm using a heavy resistance band and an extra heavy resistance band. We're outside on the parking deck, outside of my studio. You take a look over there, there it is. There's my green turf on the other side of the hedges. It's a wonderful place to work out. However, I don't have anywhere to anchor my bands, and that's why I come up to the parking deck. So, find an area where you can anchor your bands and then tear it up. I'm using the railing on the parking deck. You can see I've got my band wrapped around. So once you've got your anchor set, the second step is to take your handles and get them set up as well. We take one handle, put it through the other handle, and then we take that same handle, put it through again so that I can now let go. I only have to hold on to one band. If you put the bands in incorrectly, the whole band will slide down, you'll lose resistance, and then you might even pop yourself. For the first exercise, we have the band at about midsection height. So you can see when I have the band straight out, right around my navel. The first exercise is a drop step rotation, and this exercise is for your entire abdominal region, your serratus anterior, your lats, shoulders, biceps as well. You're even going to get some hamstring and glute activation as you perform the exercise. So once you've got your anchor point and once you have your handles in position, we start by stepping back. So I'm going to step back and find a place where I've got a fair amount of resistance. So right here, I've got a solid amount of resistance. You can see my arms straining. Core is nice and tight, abs nice and tight. I start with my feet about shoulder width apart. Arms braced, abs braced. The first motion is a diagonal step. The mistake people make with this is they take a step straight back to here and we lose resistance where we want it. So the first motion, take the diagonal step. So diagonal step, core is braced as I'm rotating. Core locked in. I'm going to rotate the back leg, flex nice and hard until I reach optimum resistance, step back to start. So even at the start position, I'm still loaded. Then to the other side, diagonal step, rotate, spin the foot, front foot, and back to start. Okay, so let me show you what it looks like in real time. Real time is typically faster and a lot more aggressive. The motion is initiated from the hips with simultaneous contraction from the abdominals and the internal and external obliques. The arms remain fixed and move with the body during the rotation. The key to success here is initiating the abdominals and engaging them prior to the rotation. The great thing about that exercise is not only does it attack the front portion of the abdominals, it attacks your internal and external oblique at the same time. So if you want to get rid of those love handles, this is a great exercise to do. For the second exercise, I'm using an extra heavy resistance band. That's because I have more leverage in this position. I want to build more muscle. I want to make sure I get a great contraction, so I go with the heavier band. I've got my band anchored at waist height again, but this time I'm not going to connect the handles. We start the exercise the same exact way. We back away from the anchor point until we find a nice point of resistance. So if I start out here, I don't know what it's going to feel like when I get to this position. So the best thing to do with this exercise is to put the handles at your waist, which is going to be the furthest position that you're going to need to take. And I'm going to walk back. So that is about as far as I can handle. I feel my abdominals contract. You can see the band shaking. So I'm going to release that. Now there's not much tension here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to step back a tiny bit more. And that's going to give me my sweet spot. So I've got my feet closer than shoulder width. Chest is nice and high. I want my abdominals engaged before I start the exercise, as well as my lats. I'm gonna screw them into my body, and I'm gonna pull as far back as I can and maintain a nice high position. Abdominals are locked in place, triceps locked, lats locked, keeping my shoulder close to my body, and then I'm gonna release forward. Again, so I've got tension here. I'm gonna show it to you now in real time. The key to this exercise is engaging the entire abdominal wall and the lats at the same time prior to your first movement. The back plays a significant role during this exercise, as does the serratus anterior, the entire abdominal wall, and the triceps. You will also have shoulder engagement, so make sure that you keep your chest high, your shoulders back, and have a slight lean forward at the waist to optimize the position. So if you've got the resistance right for this exercise, it should be extremely, extremely challenging. If you don't have the resistance right, you're using too light of a band, you won't get the same contraction, and you won't get the same results. Okay, so the third and final exercise to get these bad boys in tip-top shape is the low to high chop. With this exercise, we need to take our band from our original anchor point. I've gone back to my heavy resistance band because this is a little more challenging and there is less leverage. So I take my resistance band, I'm gonna put it underneath and anchor it nice and low. We're gonna do the same thing with the handles. So I've got one handle through the other, then take the same handle through the other. I've got it locked solid in place. So there's a fair amount of resistance on this already. We want to go with about a shoulder width position. We're going to reach over. I've got my right hand or my hand closest to the anchor point holding on to the handle. I take my left hand and I position it right on top. So the majority of the push comes from the bottom hand. I want to walk myself away from the anchor point a tiny bit. I'm going to slowly bend my knee and push back. So I'm creating tension as I push back right here. So I press back, rotate my hips, spin my opposite foot, come up as high as I can, and release down. Basically, the feet and the hip, they mirror each other. So if my right hip is spinning this way, when I'm bringing my arms down, it then spins the opposite way as I bring my arms up. So let's show this in real time. Remember, if you get this right, you should be just as out of breath as I am, or as I always say, you're in phenomenal shape. As with the other exercises, the key is engagement prior to the first motion in the areas that you want to work the most. You can see here that during the rotation, there is leg involvement. There's abdominal, internal, external oblique. The arms stay fixed with the shoulders and rotate with the entire body rather than moving independently. Drive from the hips and let your body work as one unit. Now remember, with any type of rotational exercise, the further that your arms are away from your body or your center of gravity or your axis, the more difficult it becomes. So if I were to do the wood chop with a close angle closer to my body in here, it's going to be a lot easier to move. Now, if I do the wood chop much further away from my body like I just demonstrated, it becomes far more difficult and core engaging. So keep that in mind when you're doing these exercises. Now, I get this a lot. Should I do the other side? Of course you should do the other side. If you don't, you're going to walk around lopsided all day long. So make sure you do both sides when you do the low to high chop. That was a phenomenal burn. I hope you got just as much of a burn and just as much of a sweat as I did. Now, a lot of you have asked, where do I get my resistance bands? What kind of resistance bands am I using? I've linked them in the description. So if you need some, these are the same resistance bands that I use at my studio, the same bands that I've had for the last 5 or 6 years. We've only had 1 or 2 snap that I can recall. The beauty of these is that they have a nylon sheath on the outside. The rubber band is inside, so if they snap, you don't get hurt. The only thing that happens, the band gets long and nothing else. If we just had a rubber band, it would snap and hit us, causing some sort of damage, usually welts, a lot of red. I don't like that to happen, and that is why I use these for myself and with my clients. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. I'll be back next week with another mind-blowing workout. Let's go.